There are a handful of extremely hot button topics in parenting, and today we're going to talk about one of them. My hope is that we are not too proud and that we don't idolize a system so much that we become so defensive and dig in our heels. So today, let's take a look at the school system. And then also, more importantly, let's take a look at your homeschool. Because, to be honest, the school system is, and also is getting outdated. But is your homeschool outdated? Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool, and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at a kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. Public education has become a sacred cow. The hateful and spiteful words spewed online, to me, honestly, borders upon insanity. How is it appropriate to say such words just by typing them to a stranger online, just because you're copying, typing them in, these keyboard warriors? Would they say these things to your face? To my face? I surely would hope not. And I wish that they would stop and think, I wouldn't say this to someone's face, therefore I probably shouldn't say it to them. They're a complete stranger to me. But it is a sacred cow. You begin to touch and expose or talk about the school system, public education, and people get extremely riled up. In real life, some of you have experienced this. You have gotten some backlash from friends and some family. Some of you have even been cut off from family and friends because of your choice to home educate. Not even necessarily that you are saying anything about public school or the public education system. It's just simply merely the fact that you've decided not to participate and to do something else, and people get very defensive. They begin to look at their own decisions. And it is often easier to just lash out as opposed to stopping and really looking and thinking about your own choices. And so I take it not personally anymore. I used to in the beginning, but I'm like, I can't take this personally. This says more about that other person than it does me. The only thing I can control is my response to it. And that is the same for you. And yeah, sometimes we, really want to say something back. And sometimes it is okay to say something back, because I don't think we need to be doormats as Christian homeschool parents. Absolutely not. Sometimes it's best to be silent. Sometimes it's best to say something in a loving manner. And sometimes it's best to say, you know what, this topic is not up for discussion. That's your choice. This is our choice. Let us just walk away from each other. Let me just start by saying something that can become very controversial. For you, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, that doesn't hurt my feelings, but this can really hurt people's feelings. And that is the fact that public education is the experiment. Home education is not the experiment. I don't care what you subscribe to as far as young earth, old earth, whatever of that. We're not going to get into that. But there are at least, I think we can agree, thousands of years that parents and community and neighbors and family had been teaching children. And suddenly, a little over 100 years ago, we decided it was best for someone else to teach them. It is best to put them into classrooms with children of their same age, and we will teach them. And of course, this has grown. I think back to Little House on the Prairie. I loved that show. Absolutely loved it. And we think about the one-room schoolhouse. And I think there was a lot to be learned in that environment because you're with a lot of different kids, but it has progressed. It has progressed now to cinder block buildings and calendars and tests and textbooks and funding, money that is linked to participating in certain curriculum. That's just kind of going broad. But talking about the school system today and just how in the past few years, many, if not most, or maybe even all of us that are listening, all of you that are listening, have realized that the school system, it's a bit outdated. And I had to work through this too. And I had to work through it for the 10 years previous to 2020, kind of waking a lot of us up to different things and being like, maybe we can do life differently. And it was a slow go for those 10 years. The past 5 years, it's kind of like I took off into a sprint. So think of like just a nice little walk for those 10 years and then sprinting for the past 5 years. And so I'm right there with you in realizing this. And maybe you're kind of like treading on wondering. So today I'm going to share with you just hopefully some things that are going to make you think a little bit more. And then to also then take that and evaluate your own homeschool, because that's the point of it all. We don't want to just sit here and bash something. We want to say, okay, let's take a look at something and what can we learn from that? And how can we grow and how can we change and how can we create a home educational environment, a family culture that's going to help our children and not sit here in the negativity. That's what I see a lot of people do when you start talking about public school and exposing things. And I mean, I've listened to countless podcasts and read books, and just even when I see somebody online, just sharing something like a simple reel on Instagram or Facebook, and people just come at them. I'm like, it's okay, people. We don't have to get worked up about what a stranger is thinking and doing. But today, let's focus on you and your homeschool and how you can do homeschool really well for your family. For the sake of time, we are not going to get into, and also I'm not an expert, we are not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the school system and the creation of the school system. I'm going to recommend a couple of resources to you and then let you go off and read these books, and it will maybe lead to YouTube videos. There's podcasts. There's so much out there. But since we homeschool, you probably are like me, love to have books and love to have resources. I think it's really important for us to have resources within our home, things that cannot be changed, things that cannot be altered, as far as you can ask questions of, say, ChatGPT or AI, and it's just kind of gathering. Even though it is a thing, it is not a person. There are people behind it, and therefore those people behind it have a worldview. And so it's best for us to have source material. So a couple of books that I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and get if you have not read these already. The first one is called Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Taylor Gatto. Now, I have read that one, and he does have another book called The History of American Education, something like that. But just look up John Taylor Gatto in Amazon, Thrift Books, or wherever you want to get books, and you'll be able to find that other one. I've not read that second one, but I'm sure it's great. So just know that's my disclaimer. I have read Weapons of Mass Instruction. The other authors that I would recommend, and the book what I would recommend for you to read, is called Crimes of the Educators. And that is written by Samuel Blumenfeld and Alex Newman. I can say Alex Newman. That one's an easy one to say. But it's called Crimes of the Educators. So I would highly recommend that book as well. So go ahead and read those, and it'll give you some really good insight into the history if you're confused as to what exactly is that. There's a lot of resources out there. But let's take a look now at the things that the school does that I think are outdated. And I think if we look around at the actual real world and can see from our own education, that's not really quite working. But you don't have to do these things, okay? So things like desks, you don't have to have desks. If you bought some desks, you found them at Goodwill and you like them and you want to use them because it keeps your kids like there, that's fine. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to have your kids sit for most of the day, and you don't have to yell at them for moving around. They don't have to get permission. Well, okay, they should ask before in certain times. Maybe if you're doing some instruction, they should ask before they get up to go to the bathroom. But if they're just doing the middle of their math lesson and they legitimately have to go to the bathroom and they are just doing their work on their own, it's okay for them to get up. They don't need to get a hall pass in order to go to the bathroom. You also don't have to do homeschool for 7 to 8 hours a day. You don't have to use textbooks. You don't have to use testing as a metric, whether this is subject testing or it is some type of bigger testing of that. We have to do this at the end of the year. I use the CAT test, the California Achievement Test. So you don't have to use that as a metric of their education and what they know. You don't have to do grade levels, and you don't have to do resources on their grade level. If you have, we'll say, in air quotes, and I have to keep track of what grade level each of my kids are when I send in paperwork. So let's just say that you have a 3rd grade level child and their math is more of a 2nd grade level. That's okay to do that. Or maybe their math is more of a 5th grade level. You can do that as well. You don't have to keep them in a specific grade level for curriculum. You also don't have to wait for your child to catch up to other people, or you don't have to hold your child back some because you're waiting for other children to catch up. The whole no child left behind, we can talk about that too. That should go into all of that history of the school education stuff. And I'm sure that there was good thoughts behind it, but it also held a lot of kids back. And I get it. You have a classroom full of 20, 30 kids. How can you individually educate them? You can't, but you can, because you just have one child at that age right now. Even if you have twins or triplets, you got 2 or 3, as opposed to 20 or 30 kids. And there is one of the things that school does is saying in each of the grade levels that there's a need to know certain things. Those books that say what your child needs to know in certain grade levels, when I first started homeschooling, I was like, oh, I have to get that because I have to know what they need. And then I need to use that as my guideline, and I have to get these resources. Then I would get on to like Teachers Pay Teachers, and I'd look up something. I was like, okay, they have to know their, let's just say, adverbs. Okay, let me find a resource for adverbs. And since I don't have much money, I need to find a free one. And then I'd download it and print it out and have them do it. And they're like, I don't understand adverbs. And then I'm like, okay, now we need to know adjectives. Okay, let's get something else. And there was no cohesion to it. There is cohesion when you purchase some type of curriculum, when maybe you get a language arts curriculum, even if it's just a workbook from Walmart or something, or you go and spend a lot of money on a box curriculum or something like that. There is not necessarily your child needs to know certain things at certain ages. Yes, you're probably going to learn addition, subtraction before you learn multiplication and division. And so in those skill subjects, yes, there is a growing of learning. Yeah, you need to know how to write your letters in order to be able to write a paragraph. Those things are obvious, but they don't have to know certain facts at certain ages. So if this is your focus, those things that I listed that the school is doing that you don't have to do, guess what? I mean, I can probably list a whole lot more, and you're probably listing a whole lot more right now as you're listening to this. But your homeschool is outdated. If that is your focus, if you are recreating the school at home, your homeschool is outdated. So how can you not be outdated? How can you breathe life into your homeschool and bring it into the 21st century, into 2025? And I think a lot of this goes back. I don't think that there is, okay, here's the thing. We think that here in 2025, we are at the epitome and the height of knowledge when it comes to science and medicine and health and just all the things. We think we have reached it. We have reached the pinnacle of philosophy, and we understand things, and we just get in our own way. Well, yeah, we do have more knowledge than they did 1,000 years ago. But does that mean that knowledge is 100% correct? No. Science is building upon what we have known before, and it's testing and retesting. It doesn't mean we've reached a point that we know everything. And so I think a lot of us are looking at educating our children, and we are going back to prior to the school system and the mandatory compulsory learning that your child had to go to school. Did you know that it wasn't always like that, right? Here, even in the United States, you didn't have to send your kids to school. And there was a whole lot of ruckus that was raised. Read those couple of books and you'll find out about the ruckus that was raised by parents who said, no, I don't want to send my kids off somewhere. I want them here at home with us. And so I think a lot of us are looking back and saying, okay, let's get back to the roots of children and understanding children. And so how to not be outdated. The first is to educate the child right in front of you. Look at that child. Not the other siblings or anything, and not the other kids in school, not the other kids that are your child's same age. Educate the child in front of you. Build upon what they know now. Ask them what they want to learn. Take a look, observe, and then build upon that. Number 2, choose resources that are best for your family. The school system is given resources. You are not given resources. If the school system is recommending, I remember when we first started homeschooling, the school, we were in Pennsylvania, and they would allow you to use their resources, their curriculum, their textbooks and stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, thank you. That would have been free. But I was like, nope, we don't have much money for homeschooling, but I will still spend my own money on what we wanted to do. So you can choose your own resources. Number 3 is to include what will help your child to succeed. What is going to help them to succeed out in the world just right now, even as a second grader, as a sixth grader? I know I'm using grades here, but let's say, okay, as an 8-year-old, as a 15-year-old, as an 18-year-old. Teach them, include them, what's going to help them to succeed right then and there, and then you can build upon that. Number 4, stop merely following the crowd. That goes for all kinds of things, and that goes especially for next steps, especially as teens and then beyond homeschool. So next steps beyond homeschool. Just because everybody else is heading right off to college after they're done with their high school, done with 12th grade, doesn't mean that you have to do that. I'm a huge proponent of a gap year and your children really being intentional and taking a look at like, what is the best next step? It might be college because the career they want to go into, that they're 100% that they want to know that they want to get into that might require it, but maybe it doesn't. So don't just merely follow the crowd. Ask yourself, is this best? Again, going back to number 1, is educating and parenting the child right in front of you. Number 5, don't be too proud to pivot. You might say, oh, we are going to homeschool in this certain manner, with this certain style of homeschooling, with this certain methodology, and then you start to homeschool the child in front of you and you say, I don't think this is going to work. Or you encounter certain seasons in life and you say, I don't think this is going to work. Or you start homeschooling and you just are creating the school at home. Don't be too proud to pivot and to change. And the last thing I want to mention here is that when you are wanting to not have your homeschool outdated, is to educate your child, your children, for the future, not the past. Yes, I was talking about going to the past and seeing like, okay, how do kids really learn? And we can use all kinds of the new knowledge that we have now, as opposed to when the school system started out, that we can use when we understand child development a bit better, right? We can use that. What great information that we can have. And there's just so much out there. We could say, oh, okay, this is why they learn this in this certain manner. Okay, this is why my child learns it like this. And so, yes, we can use the past, but let's not educate our kids for, let's see, the 80s, as opposed to right now. You might have a 5-year-old. Think about how old they are when they're going to be full-time out of your homeschool and into the world. Are you educating them for that? We don't know what the world's going to look like then, right? But you can kind of get some guess. And so when we educate them like the school is still educating them the same exact way. What's going on in school right now? Yeah, some things are different, but it's basically the same system that you went to school with. You get to modernize your home education with your children. And so educate for the future, not for the past. Things are changing so rapidly. This is exciting stuff, though. Don't let this get you down. If you enjoy this type of content, I share weekly a 2-Tip Tuesday in my newsletter. And so I kind of expound upon this type of stuff. I'm really enjoying writing and connecting with you through that. If you are not getting that newsletter, you're missing out. You're missing out on some more information and a little bit more getting into the weeds of some things. And I'd love to be able to pop that into your inbox. If you're interested in getting that, go ahead and check out the link in the show notes, and I'll see you back here real soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.